Hi Gemini and welcome to your horoscope for 2025. Thanks for joining me. Please watch my horoscopes in this order: rising sign first, then sun sign, and finally the moon sign. And what I'm going to do in this horoscope is I'm going to have a look at the retrograde of the personal planets, Mars, Venus, Mercury. I'll look at the 4 eclipses that we have coming up in 2025, and I'm also going to have a look at the 4 outer planets that change signs. That in itself is very significant because outer planets move very slowly. If we have one changing sign, it means that there's an impact on society, on humanity. But in 25, the fact that we have 4 of them changing means that the year is going to feel very different to the way the last few years have been feeling. And they're going to do exactly what Pluto did in 2024. So Pluto moved into Aquarius in January. It retrograded back into Capricorn in September, October, and November, and then moved forwards in Aquarius again. It's going to stay there now until 2043. So that's what these other outer planets are doing: Neptune, Saturn, Uranus. They're going to go into their new sign for a few months and then retrograde before staying in those signs for the foreseeable future in 2026. So it's going to be a flavor of what the rest of the decade looks like. So starting with the personal planets, Mercury is the communication planet, and that retrogrades 3 times this year. The downside of a Mercury retrograde is that communication and transportation becomes more stifled. But the plus side is that we're able to see things very differently. The first one is on the 14th of March until the 7th of April, and that happens in your 11th house, and then it retrogrades into your 10th house. So the opportunity of this first Mercury retrograde, and for you it has added significance because it's your ruler, it means that you're going to consider other ways of living, other hopes and dreams that could be attained in 2025, and that you consider those in earnest. But you're also going to look at your career and say, is this still suitable? Or have I developed and grown and moved in a direction where I want something else for myself now in work? So if you've wanted to change your job because it's been dissatisfying, but you haven't kind of figured out yet what exactly you would replace that with, this first retrograde is really going to be helpful with that. The second one is on the 17th of July until the 11th of August. And that's in Leo, in your 3rd house of communication. And that's wonderful because the 3rd house as well is traditionally your house. So the fact that your ruler is in there means, one, you're not going to be as impacted when it comes to communicating things. But second of all, you'll realize that if I'm in a position where I'm in the spotlight, or I'm a leader, or I'm a public speaker, or a life coach, or a writer, I want to get my point across. What can I improve so that my message reaches more people and that it's more relatable to other people? So how can I make myself more of a star through what it is I'm communicating? The final one is on the 9th of November until the 29th of November. Let's just go there. And that's in your 7th house of relationships in Sagittarius, and then retrogrades into Scorpio in your 6th house of daily routine and work. So again, the question of that retrograde then is, how do I show up in my relationships? What does my part in it, how does that cause problems, and how can I tweak it so that I have fewer issues? And also, how do I feel about my work, my daily routine, and being able to pinpoint the things that may be unhealed or problematic, and how can I now remove those? So your ruler, when it retrogrades this year, I think really helps you in perfecting what hopes and dreams you're looking at moving forward, and also how you can tweak your work so that it's more satisfying, not just from a personal standpoint, financially, but also, do I feel this is still right for me? Does it fulfill me? Do I love my work? And if not, I can make changes. Then Venus, the planet of love and beauty, that retrogrades on the 1st of March until the 12th of April. And whenever Venus goes retrograde, I always mention it's not the best time to start a new business or a new relationship, because your perception of what you love is very different. And then when it goes direct again, you can be like, what was I thinking there? But it retrogrades in Aries in your 11th house of hopes and dreams. And again, it's a moment for you to step back and to say, okay, this is what I've accomplished already. during this retrograde, what would I like to build in future in my relationships and in my working life. Mars is the planet of masculinity and drive, and that's currently in retrograde. It's been in retrograde from the 6th of December 2024, and it stays in retrograde until the 23rd of February next year. So pretty much the first 2 months of the new year. And for you, that's in your second house of money in Cancer. So that's interesting because the plus side, you can ask yourself, how can I take care of myself better in terms of money, income? What unnecessary expenses can I cut out so that I experience less financial pressure on a day-to-day basis? But what I'm getting is that if you're in negotiations, or if you're trying to negotiate a salary, for instance, or if you're trying to get funding for a new business, that Mars in Cancer in retrograde could make you far more likely to compromise what it is you want and to throw in the towel because it seems too hard. Be aware of that and judge those kind of situations on their merit. Look at them objectively. And if you're unwilling to budge, then really go into those kind of situations and say, do not budge. And it's better to say no rather than to accept something that you don't want or that's unsuitable for you. Okay, then moving on to the eclipses. The first one, and eclipses in themselves are new moons and full moons that are interrupted, right? And because they're interrupted, the energy lingers for 6 months and you have access to them for 6 months. So the first one is a full moon in Virgo. It's a lunar eclipse that happens on the 13th or 14th of March, depending on your time zone. But that happens in your 4th house of family and your roots and what makes you feel like you belong and you're at home. And Virgo is kind of like the nurse. It's ruled again by your ruler, Mercury. So you and Virgo are kind of cousins. And if there's anything in your home life and your family life that needs sorting, that needs perfecting, you'll be able to do that from March onwards until August, September very easily. They always come in twos. So on the 29th of March then, we have a new moon in Aries, and that's a solar eclipse. And that happens in your 11th house of hopes and dreams. And it's flanked by Chiron, the wounded healer. You're transiting midheaven and transiting Mercury, which is also in Aries, but in retrograde. So this really is, how do I consider my hopes and dreams for the future? What don't I have that I want in future? What do I want to let go of? And what steps can I take to make sure I get there? So it's really empowering. And it means that from March to September, you're really all about my hopes and dreams rather than what other people want for me. So it's, you are super independent, you think outside of the box, you think for yourself, and you have your own best interest at heart. Okay, moving on to September now, when we do have the next lot of eclipses. The first one is on the 7th of September. We have a full moon in Pisces, and that's a lunar eclipse. The moon and the sun in a chart, I always look at the moon as your heart, your feeling, and the sun, your head, your conscious awareness and identity. And this lunar eclipse is in your 10th house of work. It's lit up by a sun in Virgo. So this gives you an understanding of, what do I want to contribute to my work, what makes me feel safe, what makes me feel fulfilled, interested, like I'm on the right track. And again, if anything isn't right, you're able to tweak things so that they make more sense to you. So that could be making changes within your existing job. It could be making a lateral move to a different company if you have some issues with that. Or it could be considering a completely new career and saying, I don't want to do A anymore, I want to do B. And that then supports you until what? March, April, the following year, 2026. On the 21st of September, we have a new moon in Virgo, and that's a solar eclipse. And again, that happens in your 4th house of your roots and your family. So it's interesting because both of those eclipses in March and in September for you, Gemini, in 2025, there's a real opportunity to sort out your home life. And as it relates to other people, who you live with, who you have contact with, but also the actual building, right? Do I live in a flat? Do I rent? Do I own? Is it detached? Is it looking at what works best for me? And you can devote yourself to that the entire year and say, I want to now acquire something or bring something into my life that really makes me feel safe and like I am home, so that I can perfect my other dreams for my life, both in my relationships and in my work. Moving on to the outer planets, on the 30th of March until the 22nd of October, we have Neptune in Aries. Neptune is the water planet of dreams and intuition, and that's been in Pisces for the last few years, and that's been very intuitive, but it's also been very accepting, and it's been sitting in your 10th house of career. So it wouldn't have prompted you to say, do you know what, this doesn't work right for me, get rid of it. It would have said, accept and just see what is. With it going into Aries in your 11th, that's a very, very different vibe now, because it says, do you know what, Gemini, if something doesn't work for you, you don't have to accept it, and you don't need to put up with things that make you unhappy. Not only are you sorting out your home life, but please get a plan together for your future and make a list of all of the things you'd like to experience and the things that you can manifest for yourself. So this is really significant, because Neptune takes 165 years to go through all 12 zodiac signs, and it spends about 13 to 14 years in each sign. So the fact that it's now going into Aries in your 11th means it stays in your 11th for a long time. And next year and beyond, the question and the creativity that you have is really around, how am I making my own hopes and dreams a reality? So Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, the planet of love and beauty, and it represents humanity, society, creativity, innovation, the arts, healing. And in Aries, there's much more of a focus and much more a self-reliance rather than an acceptance of what should be according to society, or even a sense, this is what the creator wants for me, and who am I to disagree? It puts the power firmly in your it gives you access to your own personal power, and it says, I have faith in myself as well as the universe, and I can make things happen for myself. On the 24th of May until the 1st of September, we have Saturn in Aries. And Saturn has also been in Pisces in your 10th house of career. And that has been very similar in the sense that, who am I to change my job if it isn't perfect? Or, even those kind of thoughts where people are like, no one likes their job. Who am I to try and find one that I do like? So let's see. It hops out of your 10th house into your 11th house of hopes and dreams, and it joins Neptune. And if you look at that, Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and it's got all the energy of something or someone who's just been born and is now ready to live their life. There's a lot more movement and fire than when you're, 100 years old and you don't have this whole unwritten story ahead of you. So both those shifts really are going to galvanize you into action, Gemini, and they're going to say anything is possible, and if you can think it, you can manifest it. So Saturn takes 28 to 29 and a half years to orbit the sun, and it stays in each sign for about 2.5 to 3 years. So it's going to be in Aries in that 11th house of yours. So the next 3 years, you're going to be so pumped to make your hopes and dreams a reality that you have more energy, and as a result, you're going to have much better things to show for all of this activity once those 2/3 years are done. All the outer planets represent humanity and society. And in 1967 to 1969, Saturn was in Aries, and that was a time of huge cultural change where people said, I don't want to tolerate these rules anymore. I want to just authentically be myself. But Aries is also ruled by Mars, the planet of masculinity and drive, ambition, but even war, right? So there could be more conflict coming in. But for you personally, it's really about, let's bring it down back to the self and see what the self can do to manifest circumstances that are based on my own actions and that I then can be proud of. On the 9th of June till the 29th of June, Jupiter, the lucky planet, that moves out of Gemini and into Cancer, and it goes into your second house of money, which bodes really well because you're going to be interested in taking care of yourself financially, but also looking at what income or what savings or what finances you have that you can use to invest in your future hopes and dreams being a reality. So for instance, I want to, start an art gallery. I've saved a certain amount of money, so I'm going to pour that into the rent and then the space and putting up the art so that I actually have a business, which I've always dreamt of doing. Jupiter moves much more quickly than the other outer planets. It changes sign about once a year. It takes 12 years to go around the entire zodiac. So that's not as kind of eye-opening as all these other planets changing sign. But with it sitting in your second house, it means that from the middle of 2025, June, until the middle of 2026, you're likely to have a lot of growth in your finances. And it's as a result of you taking care of your own needs and realizing your hopes and dreams. And then finally, we've got Uranus in Gemini, and that's from the 7th of July until the 7th of November. Uranus was in Taurus before, where it caused a lot of financial insecurity because Uranus is the miraculous and the unexpected and what you can't really control. And with it going into Gemini, it goes into your first house of self. So it's this miraculous self-belief for you, Gemini. And Uranus takes 84 years to go around the entire zodiac, so it's going to stay in that sign now for the next 7 years in your first house of self. So anything is possible, any problem can be solved. Uranus is about chaos and the unexpected, and Gemini, in combination with that, is going to set the stage for real technological advances to occur over the next 7 years. Advances in AI, social media, invention, technology, science, all of that stuff. But for you, it's really about this sense that I am a Gemini. I can solve any problem that comes my way, and I have all the energy to pour into that, so hooray. So it looks wonderful. I think you're going to have a fabulous year, and then the years afterwards are going to have more of the same. So look out for this, and really, I think at the beginning of the year, it might be good to kind of set some goals and even to put some goals on there which are impossible, because it's likely that you can achieve the impossible. So I hope that gives you an idea of what you'll be working with. If you'd like a personal reading with me, please get in touch via my website, gregoryscott.com. In my personal readings, I use astrology, the tarot, numerology, as well as my intuition. To draw up your birth chart, I need your place of birth, date of birth, and time of birth. If you don't have the time of birth, then please order a chart rectification. That's a process where you send me 10 or more life events and I actually work out your time of birth manually, which makes the chart more accurate. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up, please. Hit subscribe for more videos and share it with anyone you think may like it. I also do a personal and daily tarot reading on the channel. So if you'd like to watch that, then please become a member. Have a wonderful year, and I'll speak to you soon.